Good afternoon, everybody, wherever you might be in the world. So also good morning, good evening. My name, as many of you may know by now, is John Quick. I'm a fellow aortic dissection survivor who also, after the experience, trained in psychotherapy and in counseling. And I've been doing my best to help people since, and increasingly talking to people with PTSD and who have had various experiences in that kind of arena. And I'm delighted to say that joining me today, we have another aortic dissection survivor, Bruce O'Rourke. So hi, Bruce.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
So Bruce, you're in California, yes?
Yes, Sacramento, California. That's where I'm in, Roseville, Sacramento area. I'm right in the middle of the Central Valley
Lovely. And
of
how's your
California.
weather today?
Gorgeous. Yeah, we've been having great weather. Got over 100 over the weekend, but right now it's 80s, 90s. It's
Okay.
hard to complain.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how many years ago you had your problem with your aorta.
I'm about 30 months out, so a year and a half out. It was late December of 2022. I work as a construction and maintenance manager for the sewer district in the area. It's a large sewer district, so it's a pretty stressful, pretty demanding job at times. And I was on my way home from work, uh, December 27th, 2022, and started feeling crappy. Got home, took an
What did
Alka-Seltzer.
it? Just tell us what does feeling
Crappy
crappy?
means?
Break that open for us a
Okay,
little bit, because in a
I
way, for
thought,
everybody, in terms of
yeah, it's
diagnosis,
different.
those kinds of things are important, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I thought it was indigestion. It was the holidays, and there's all kinds of junk food and crap that people bring in to eat, and I
Mm,
will overindulge. And I thought that's what it was. I thought it was indigestion, gas, and so my thought I was going to take an Alka-Seltzer as soon as I got to my house, and that's what I did. And immediately I felt pain right here, and the
mm-hmm.
pain just kind of radiated down through my chest and into my stomach, almost like you're filling me up with pain going down. And it stopped at my hips, and I thought, wow, this is really weird. And then I realized this is not indigestion, this is something serious. And
Mm-hmm.
so uh tried walking. That was a mistake. That really hurt. Decided I better go to the hospital. And the emergency people responded quickly. They were there within 5 minutes.
Oh, so they
Did
triaged
the
you and straight away realized there was an issue, obviously.
they Everything, all of my vitals came back fine, and so they were
Hmm.
asking me more questions and thinking, they weren't sure what it was. They didn't think it was my heart at that point. And I don't recall exactly what the conversation was, but I want to say that I told them that my brother had a dissected aorta and this could be one as well. And I think they took me seriously, took me to the hospital, and there wasn't a lot of we see on a lot of the people here at Aortic Hope get to run around in emergency rooms.
Mm.
I didn't get that. I think I got a CT scan right away, but a lot of it is really foggy. I don't recall too much of it. It was at the end of COVID, so they allowed my daughter to come in, and a lot of what happened in the emergency room, I got through her. We get through her, so
Mm.
I do remember knowing that it was a dissection, and that they were going to have to send me to another facility because they didn't have anybody that could perform the surgery on staff at that time or in the immediate area. So they arranged for me to go to Stanford, which is about 100 miles away in the Bay Area.
Okay. So Bruce,
Excuse me.
just you mentioned your brother. Did that give you some kind of context and sort of previous knowledge, as it were, of maybe what to look out for? Is it that alerted you a little bit? Do you think?
Yes, yes and no. I never knew. He and I never talked about what he felt. When he dissected, he just said it hurt like hell, and he was putting his weight on his bathroom sink, and the sink collapsed. He he had a type B, and that was all we ever talked about, the dissection. He was paralyzed from the waist down from
Mm,
his dissection, and that was the biggest issue in his life. It wasn't that he was a aortic survivor. We never even talked about his aorta. I still didn't really have an idea what an aorta was until now, just the basics. So, but I knew from that experience that he had that this is probably what it was. When he was at Stanford 16 years prior, the cardiologist came out after his surgery and told me that it was probably something I needed to worry about. And I said, well, what do I do? And he said, there's really nothing you can do. It's probably genetic, and take care of yourself. That's all,
yeah. And did you take heed of that at the time?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, um, sorry about that. Let me turn this off.
That's fine.
At the time, I took I was in pretty good shape. I was a avid runner. Wasn't a great runner, but I did it regularly, and
Mm,
I mostly watched my weight. I would probably go off the rails every once in a while, both with physical activity and eating, but for the most part, I took pretty good care of myself. And whenever I had a medical need, for example, I was diagnosed some years later with ADHD, and they prescribe amphetamines for that. So I went through several stress tests and um, to make sure that it wasn't going to raise my blood pressure. And I made sure my physicians at that time I had Kaiser, that they knew that I was my possibility of an aortic dissection in my future. So it was on my radar, but I thought it had been 15, 16 years since my brother dissected, so I thought I outran it, so to speak,
yeah.
from taking good care of myself. I didn't. It caught me off guard. It was not in my plans. But I think I knew what it was. I want to say that I told the emergency crew, but like I said, my memory of it is pretty foggy.
Mm.
Uh, uh,
It's probably very useful for them to know that if you manage to
yeah,
convey that. Yeah.
yeah. Uh,
So,
I'd like to
so
think
they
it
transferred
did.
you to Stanford by helicopter, I guess. Yes.
No, no, they couldn't. The weather was terrible. We were having some of the worst storms of recent time. Fog, wind, rain, and I think holidays had something to do with it too. But I guess the helicopter was grounded,
Mm,
so they drove me in an ambulance. I was asleep by then. I don't. I You know how when you get enough information, your brain starts filling in the blanks. I want to say that I knew that I was being put under, but I don't really recall it definitively whether. But I was pretty much. I didn't know anything probably for another 3 days after that. I don't think I woke up until the 31st of the first of the year,
okay.
and that was 27th.
And when you came round, how was the world for you?
It was all bad. It was terrible. It was. I had these delusional dream nightmares, uh, and I was fighting people. I read my report a few months ago, and I was described as moving robustly in my bed, fighting off four other people. My son, a nurse, good sized nurse too. He's a big boy, and two other people trying to pull all my everything out. So they kept on having to put me back under because I was a menace to myself, and I was in a complete. I remember those delusions or nightmares, whatever you want to call them, like it happened yesterday. But I don't remember anything else. It was
So that
terrifying.
they obviously had quite an effect on you, quite a significant impact.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
It's interesting, isn't it, that maybe in a more mild way, but I had similar kind of delusions, images of people walking by the bed, warriors and soldiers and things like that, sort of led me to wonder whether that's something in the unconscious kind of representing, the fights on, the battles on, um, for our survival, and somehow that's how it's being represented to us. I've also kind of wondered whether that was also the medication that I was on. We're doped up to the eyeballs, aren't we? Um, but yeah, and so gradually you came back to yourself and this new world you faced.
Yes, it took a while. I mean, while I was the actual delirium, probably 3 or 4 days after they brought me out of the anesthesia, I was still. Say it was a couple days, definitely 2 days after they brought me out. My nurse was he was a travel nurse, and he was going to somewhere. But I was positive he had to kill me, and I was kind of reconciled with it because I knew too much and I had to go. I was going to be problems, and so I told my youngest son, I said, "Do not leave me alone with that man at all." And my son, he knows that there's, Dad's kind of whacked right now. But I swear to God, I woke up several times during the night, and my son is staring at me, keeping vigil over me, and um, Travis, the nurse, and then I before he finally left I think he went to Georgia. I thanked him for help save my life, and he was a good guy, and he was a great nurse, but I thought he was going to
Mm.
kill me.
I
And
notice
every
you can
day,
you can say it kind of with humor now, and you tell it to me quite tongue in cheek, and it's got that kind of black comedy about it, hasn't it? Do
yeah,
you do you
yeah,
think that's kind of do you think time does that it kind of provides some
yes,
healing, and the camera comes out, we can begin to see some of the absurd things we do in those moments?
yeah, and even for months after and it initially happened, it was a shameful experience. I was so embarrassed that I was out of my mind. And while I
Mm,
was, even now, some of it still makes me cringe. I didn't understand when the psych staff would come in and talk to me. They didn't tell me why they were talking. I thought they thought I was suicidal, and so all my questions were, all their questions I answered with, "Well, no, I'm not trying to kill myself. I want to be alive." And they're just trying to see if how much brain damage I had from the
yeah.
anesthesia, the heart lung machine, or whatever. And so in those questions, I probably seemed like I was out of it too, or those answers.
Mm.
No, it was humiliating for me, and it took. I won't say it took a year, but it took the better part of a year to kind of be able to look at that with any kind of humor at all.
But of course, it's important to remember that in those situations, you're not going to be the first. We're not going to be the first, are we? They've seen it. They've seen that. It's going to be expected.
Apparently, it seemed like it was odd.
Oh,
Yeah, at least that was the impression I got in conversations with. It wasn't until really I got with Aortic Hope that I'd heard other people going through that.
mm,
I didn't really get a lot of good follow up with, at Stanford is not my medical provider, so I didn't have a lot of interaction with them until, once I left, they check on me still, but only see how my scans are doing. But as far as, no, you can expect to have PTSD. I never heard anything about PTSD. I didn't know what was going on in my head. I still don't understand why it
mm,
happened, but I didn't know
yeah.
about that. I didn't know why I was depressed. I didn't know why I couldn't sleep. It was
So so
freaking
was that
scary.
in the subsequent weeks, were those some of the symptoms
Yeah.
of your trauma? Would you like to tell us a little
Yeah.
bit more about that?
Oh, yeah. So I I left on the 8th, which I guess would have been about 10 or 12 days. And my daughter had set me up a room separate from the rest of the house because we have dogs that are pretty good size, and I was pretty fragile. And it was like a sanctuary. It was a cocoon in there, that
Mm.
I felt comfortable and I felt safe, but I still couldn't sleep. I could get comfortable. Being in the hospital, I couldn't sleep. It was very difficult physically and emotionally. Once I got home, it was a lot better, but it still wasn't great. I want to say I slept with the light on for a little while, and I don't know exactly why. I just felt better.
Do
And
do you
then I went.
do you think you felt
But
just plain scared?
yes, and I'm not sure. You know, you want to think, well, I was afraid that I would die, but I don't know that that was it because I was home for like 4 or 5 days, and I had to go back because of a fluid around my heart.
Mm.
And before they put me back in an ambulance and drove me back to Stanford, I was laying in the emergency room at Kaiser, at that time my medical provider, and I could hear the staff talk about me and saying that I had to go back because they had to redo the surgery. And I remember thinking, okay, well, this is the last place I get to see before I die because I am not going to do well. I was terrified of another surgery. I don't think I was terrified of dying. It felt like I was pretty much, this is it. So I don't know what my fear was. I think I don't know.
It isn't part of
Uh,
it that the whole experience is just plain scary because and it's fine to see it like that. Maybe it doesn't need any more analysis. That suddenly, we're doing one thing one day, and this happens out of the blue. Everything is turned on its head, and it is just very, very traumatic.
yes, yeah, it is. It is a big damn deal. And I remember thinking while I was in the hospital the first time that I would have thought if you'd have told me, okay, you're going to have a dissection and all this is going to happen, I would have said, well, I'll probably handle it pretty well because I got a pretty good relationship with mortality, and I'm pretty um, philosophical guy. No, I couldn't have handled it worse, I don't think. But
So did that rather
if
kind of
you,
blow all of your, all of whatever your meditation or your philosophies out of the water that actually up
yeah,
close and personal, there it
yeah,
was,
yeah,
mortality.
yeah. It's like thinking you can run a marathon because you run 4 miles every Saturday, and you get out there at mile 10, and you realize, oh no, no, I made a big mistake, and that's the way it
Mm,
felt. I
mm.
and it felt um, it
So
was very confusing. I remember it from my one of my delusions. It was the last one, the one before I woke up. I could hear my nurse's voice, and he said, what does it matter with you? You're going to kill yourself. And I said to him, I don't know. I'm confused and I'm scared. And apparently I mouthed that because somebody said that I actually said that. And that's the way I think I was for the better part of a month.
yeah,
Uh,
I hear you completely. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't sleep
yeah,
either. Um, yes, I think when we come very close to the moment of mortality, actually going to sleep can be very, very terrifying, can't it? Because it's quite logical to think, well, will I wake up?
yeah. So, and like you said, I think probably overthought it.
Mm,
Maybe tried to rationalize something that, it's pretty actually a pretty simple equation. My aorta dissected, they saved my life. It's time to heal. But I let that spin around in my brain, well, for at least 8 to 12 days while I was there, and
mm.
probably for another 8 to 12 months after.
Okay. So your aortic valve and so on was okay? That wasn't damaged?
No, they replaced the valve, and
Oh,
at
they
that
did
time I really
replace the
didn't.
valve.
They replaced the valve. I'm still dissected from wherever the replacement is down to my iliac,
Hmm.
whatever's down there. And I couldn't even look at my records. And if I did look at my records early on, I wouldn't have known what I was reading. I couldn't even read. I mean, I could read words and understand it, but my patience with it and my comprehension was piss poor. I'd read something and I forget about it, or it would cause me too much stress or anxiety. And so for 3 months, I don't think I read more than an email or two as far as.
Okay. So in this time of kind of what sounds like huge upheaval and a lot flying around in your head, it's all very internalized. Was there any support there for you professionally, or because yeah, and also domestically, it's very shocking for family members, isn't it?
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
often don't know how to respond, and why would they necessarily have the tools to know to respond?
No,
It can bounce a
no.
family into a completely kind of new country.
Yeah, yeah. And it did. But both family and work were so supportive. It was amazing. It was one of the best things about the whole experience was the amount of support that I got. I went out to get the mail. I think I don't remember how long I'd been home, but I went out and got the mail, and there was a couple packages. One was this big envelope, and then another was a pretty decent sized box, and I didn't know what they were. I thought I knew they came from my work, but I didn't know what it could be. Maybe they're sending me disability information or something. I don't know. But they made these cards, and there must have been 70 signatures on that. And then the other box was from our other. We have a couple different locations, and this was the box was from another location. And it was full of books, and someone there knew I liked to read, and someone there knew that I'd just taken a math class, so I had all these math books that made me cry. That was like, wow,
That's lovely. Yeah.
yeah, no, I'll never forget that. I'll forget a lot of things,
Mm.
but I won't forget that. But
So,
yeah, it affects the people that care about you. It's much differently than it affects
mm.
than it affected me, and of course, by extension, now that affects me. Now it caused me a lot of guilt to know that I put people who love me through that sort of thing. Um,
Do you think in those situations we maybe try to overprotect people, and because of that we feel we should manage it on our own and not put them through the ringer? How have you been with that?
Probably not as good as I could be, but yeah, you want to be. You don't want to be a burden, um, but at the same token, you have to realize that that's how people show that they care. And if you
Mm.
don't allow them to do the things that they want to do, then you're denying that, and you're robbing them, and you're robbing yourself. It's difficult to be vulnerable to people, though. At
Yeah.
least that's my experience.
You
Um,
beat me to the word vulnerable. And do you think that's sort
yeah.
of that there in us as men that we maybe feel we should be kind of strong and not reveal any vulnerability, and that just makes it all more difficult for us?
I think so. Yeah. When I've joked with someone that I think I don't remember what was said, but my answer was, "No, I'm sorry. They cut the S off my chest when when they fixed my aorta." I think you can't be Superman kind of comment, and I said, "Well, no, don't worry. They cut the S off my chest." But there was probably some truth in my attitude there. Is that it wasn't. Probably get a little deeper than I can put to words, but when something like this happens to you, you look in a mirror and you see someone you don't recognize because they went from being a healthy, active 60, I don't remember, it must have been 63-year old to a
Mm,
90-year-old. It's like I went through, I lost the fall of my life. I went from September to December to January, and I didn't get that graceful transition to old
mm,
age. I became
mm.
old, and I mean, blink of an eye, and that was difficult, more difficult to deal with than I realized. It was much more difficult physically. I mean, there's been a lot of challenges, but emotionally, it's been much worse.
Okay, so
Mm.
of course, a lot of that's perception, isn't it? Because another way of turning that round is never mind losing the S off your chest. You actually are Superman for what you've gone through, and here you are. But it's often we're our own harshest critics, aren't we? Um,
Yeah,
and we don't like we tend to sort of see this as a failure, perhaps, or as something has broken. But actually, I think it's very important in terms of PTSD and recovery and rehabilitation to actually say, to challenge those thoughts in ourselves and say, hang on a minute, you know, what I'm actually doing has, Superman qualities or Superwoman qualities. What do you think about that?
no, no, I agree. And one of this was early on. It's when I first got with the Aortic Hope and started going to their survivor support group meetings in Velda. She talked about what her doctor had told her that you you just went through it. This is not you know minor surgery. You went through a trauma, and good on you. And I heard those words, and I hear them from people that care. And
Mm,
I'm not really good at taking positive feedback. I try to I deflect it a lot, but it does land, and no, I believe that's true. And like you said, it's perceptions. Um, but those perceptions were my own too. They weren't
yeah.
just brought on by, those are 63 years of ingrained self identification. And it's not easy to, I
Yes.
think 30 months after it happens, I think I'm just now getting through the mourning process of my old self, of, mourning my old self.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that then? Because you aren't really that far out, are you? And I
No,
forgot to mention this at the top, and I also forgot to mention, sorry, Joshua, but please like and subscribe. But I'm coming up 19 years. Um, I'm a sort of, perhaps an old lag at this, but I do remember very much some of some of the things you're saying chime with me. Of course they do. Um, so tell us a little bit about that then.
well, I mentioned before, you look in the mirror and you see someone that you just don't recognize, and that I had skipped early old age and went right to old age.
Is that what you feel?
And I don't feel that way anymore. I mean, I, I would have been nice to gradually go into the condition I am in now, but the 30 months has really changed too. I mean, I'm very thankful that I have the opportunity to talk about this. You know, I could be dead. You know, if I was born when my father was born, he died probably from a dissected aorta. He got up, he wasn't feeling good, he went back to bed, and he was in the autopsy. I don't think they did an autopsy, but the cause of death was aneurysm.
Mm.
So, you know, I'm lucky I was born in Northern California, or born in California in the 60s, and happened to be near world-class medical care. And my
Yeah.
life is saved. If any other place, I could be dead. And I am very lucky that I get to talk about it.
Mm.
And I think I'm very lucky that I went through the whole process. I have I think, a healthier attitude towards, you know, self-image. Um, and there's a lot of things I still struggle with. The PTSD seems to minimized. I don't have the anxiety that I did for the first year. I still I still jump at loud noises, and God knows why it's loud noises, but someone sneezed the other day and I shouted. It's funny now. Before it was annoying, and then it went to frustratingly sad, and now it's funny. So
Yes, it's
uh,
interesting. That's very common, that
yeah,
not being able to cope with loud noises and things. It's almost like the body is
yeah,
so hyped up and on alert of any kind of threat. I'm not quite sure why
yeah.
that is, but why that all plays out in that way, but it does. Yes. So tell us a bit more then about some of the challenges in these 30 months for you.
Um, well, mentally, it was the PTSD was, and I don't. It's hard to judge when it started going away. I just in the last few days I started noticing, thinking about the changes in my relationship with um, reality, or you know, because for a while there was some really dark periods of my life. I want to say the first 6 7 months after my dissection, I was pretty down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably the worst part of my life, and that's completely different. I watched my Survivor Series video, and it was pretty accurate. I don't think I think the only thing I'd change is I'd speed up the cadence or the pace of my presentation. It was very slow, but that was pretty accurate. That's exactly how I remember it, and it's nice to look back, because I think that was at 9 months, so it was probably not
Okay.
quite 2 years ago. But I'm a completely different person, and
So what would you say to
there's
that person now? That person at 9 months, what would you say to them now?
be patient. It does get better, and this too shall pass. And that was what used to be my common refrain: is everything's going to be fine, and it's true. It will be fine.
Mm.
Stay positive and just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and that's kind of what I did. Um, I'd say there's things that I would do over, but I can't think of what, or that I would do differently, but I can't think of what they were. Um, I I'm pretty. I'm in a pretty good place
Good.
as far as, yeah, and physically I feel 100% better, and I went through the post dissection exercise program with Dr. Prakash, and that was really beneficial. That was one of the best things that I did, because I learned that I could exercise and I could keep it up over a long period of time. It was exhausting, and I think the hardest part was to keep at it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I kept going with other types of exercises. I swam. Right now, we have a really good exercise or fitness program here at work that they use to, try to keep, especially the field guys, healthy. and that's wonderful.
That's really useful to have that, isn't it? And is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
trainer aware of your distinct issues?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. She's really good. She's very motivating. She uh I'm definitely the most, I don't want to say needy, but the most challenging of her clients here.
Oh, go on, be
But
needy.
she,
Why not?
well,
You deserve it,
I'm
I'm
probably
sure.
I'm al- I'm also, yeah, I'm also the most enthusiastic about it too.
Yeah.
I don't back away from, and she's full of heaps praises on. So it's I'm very sore today. We had a workout Tuesday, and so it'll last with me for a couple days.
So shout
But
out
I'm
to her. Her name is.
Yeah, Olga. Olga.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Olga, for all that you're doing for
Yeah.
Bruce.
Yeah.
And that segues me quite nicely into remembering that we should say hello to all of our viewers. Over to Joshua
Yeah,
for that.
let's welcome the chat. Thank you, Olga. I was like, of course her name is Olga. So Tom and Molly and Oaktastic. And then where is she? There's a little bit of chat here. Christina jumps in to say, sorry I missed the beginning. Molly's got some questions for you. First off, Oaktastic says he's a big, strong man, so I feel like you know who Oaktastic is.
Yeah.
Which surgeon do you see at Stanford? If you care to share, I see Dr.
She's been amazing.
Fishbaum. That's Molly.
She is amazing. Yeah.
Right on. Molly was, she shares with us that she was terrified at night also. She was certain somebody would off her in the middle of her sleep. Post-traumatic stress, sad face. She said that lasted several years.
It would be interesting to gather that data because it seems common. These kind of this sense of an external threat.
I wish that I could pinpoint when I felt like I was. I mean, I still suffer from it a little bit, but it's not like it was, and it's been a couple of years. So yeah.
Yeah. Molly shares with us the smallest of gestures from friends and family really meant a lot at the beginning, and how thoughtful of your work colleagues, which I agree. She says, funny, I also felt 90 years old after the recovery. And she shares with us, I jump at noises all the time, and people who come around corners make me scream. Molly. She asks, how soon did you return to work, and how was it difficult? And also, good morning, Elena.
I didn't hear the question.
Good morning to everybody.
How soon did you return to work, and was it difficult?
It was difficult. It was. I returned 2 months, 2.5, yeah, about 9 weeks. March. I dissected in last of December, and I returned the beginning of March. But I have a great support here at work, and that really helped. In fact, I don't. Probably not too early for my own mental well-being, being back at work with people that I felt comfortable being around in this condition, and having a regular schedule, it made a big difference. I don't think I was ready to work, but I was ready to come back, and I'm glad I did.
Let's just dive into the detail a little bit there, because you chimed with something in me. We can broadly say we'll go back to work and but did you find matching a pressure to match the pace that you maybe had before, or that you maybe needed to manage fatigue and things? Were you able to cope with that?
I think most of the pressure was put on by myself as far as to match and as far as the fatigue goes, that was the difficult part. I think afternoon, and it was a progression. So I would be good till about noon, and then I would be good till 1. And I'm getting to where a whole day. One of the things that bothered me was I felt like, and I don't know if gaslighting is the right term, but it felt like it at times, where people, oh, you're okay, you better take it easy. And I kind of resented that. Fortunately, I had an advocate who would tell him to shut up, and I always appreciated that.
Well,
So,
did you feel that was a
and
bit patronizing then, or something, or
yeah, I did.
was that more coming from the men in the office, kind of maybe not
Yeah,
actually able to properly relate to you and be sympathetic?
perhaps, yeah. Yeah, it was,
Mm.
in fact, every once in a while it'll still happen, and it's just like, no, it isn't helpful.
I mean, we don't
But,
need to be told we need to take it easy, really, do we? We kind of know that.
no,
And there we are trying to go
and
back to work, and
yeah,
with all that's
and
involved in that. What do you want me to do? Bring a bed into the office or something?
if I could, but and the way it's delivered, be delivered to me, it felt condescending. It didn't feel sincere. I tried to be gracious and allow the possibility that it is sincere, but
Mm.
I didn't. But like I said, I had an advocate that would tell them to shut up, and so I
Yeah.
felt more support than I did anything else. I
So
um
so a strategy might be just to tell people to shut up.
yeah, that's
Okay,
true.
we'll note
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. I also wondered about the little details, though, that's important in terms of like kind of rejoining the world. And that I have sort of memories of having to give an important talk when I felt I was very much, bit likely to be judged for it by colleagues and things like that. And I can remember, because I was still getting used to the valve, with all of its kind of rabbit-like thumping, that I was getting stressed and feeling nervous, and I could really feel the valve inside me. And I remember a kind of conflict of thinking, is this really wise? Because here I am trying to kind of rejoin and prove myself in the environment once again, but actually, I'm feeling stressed. My body's registering it more, and I didn't really know where the risk level was. That thing of like, I shouldn't be pushing this. And to me, that's where some of the challenges can be, where it's a bit like, again, also with exercise, although slightly different. It's like we don't quite know where the limit is, do we?
No, that's when you need someone that, like I said, like an advocate that warns you off, reminds you what's at risk. And I didn't feel that so much at work. I would feel that when, trying to push myself exercising, swimming or walking. There was times though at work where I needed someone to give me the safe word to shut up because it wasn't, I guess I talk a lot, and sometimes, late in the day, it may not come out as I intended it. That was my biggest challenge, I think, with, just the fatigue, I think, to not so much the stress. I did overall, though, chide myself thinking, why are you getting back to the same stress that probably helped kick you, that caused all this? Why are you doing it?
Mm.
So I had the spells of that.
Well, that's an important question, isn't it? I mean, I think
Yeah,
I've mentioned before that I wrote about this in an article that at the beginning, I was sort of completely anxiety free because it felt to me like the body just went into a kind of survival mode, was very much living for the day, and I described it as kind of almost like being on a holiday from life. And then as I started to get better, back come some of the old worries of rejoining the world. They might be financial, they might be emotional, whatever. And many times I've gone through that process of thinking, well, what have you really learnt from this, John? If you're once again going to go into that loop of feeling anxiety, because you've been right to the edge. What else is there to fear? And I think that's a really important lesson for us to take away, is that literally, what else is there to fear? But I've talked about this in other sessions. Often what we fear, of course, is a recurrence, isn't it? A repeat.
Yes. Yeah, and that's it. And it's a double-edged sword, because in one way it can be, kind of edifying when things would get kind of overwhelming, whether it's at work or anywhere else. It's like, you can't be any worse than a dissection, so bring it on. On the other hand, though, it can be getting back to putting myself in the same spot I was before. It's bound to increase my blood pressure, and for what? However, and I don't know if this is a rationalization or if it's a valid point. I grew up working since I was a teenager, and it's what I know. It's where I feel comfortable. It's the routine of getting up and having something to do, and to me, it feels like an important part of my life, and it's kind of cathartic. It's helpful. It's one of the secure things that I know. And kind of a security thing, I guess. I don't know.
The word I think I would use there is, it's the importance of purpose, is it not?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and maybe that's one of the ways we can feel vulnerable after this is, okay, so what's happened to my purpose in life? That's all unstable now. Can I find my old purpose? And I think that's very important for human beings and mental health, to have a sense of purpose to keep us moving forward.
Yeah. I think that's, again, it's also a double-edged sword, because I think I was thinking it this week was, you have this innate, at least I have this innate, and maybe it's a cultural thing with Americans, to keep progressing up whatever ladder you're on, whether it's athletic, social, work. And there's another position that conceivably, if I choose, I could get promoted. And so I kind of have that in the back of my mind, promoting this. Why? What is it that makes that a necessary thing, or even an advisable thing? But it's the purpose thing. You got to keep moving forward, and a fear of being lackadaisical, just going through the motions, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it keeps me doing what I consider a good job. I don't want to just show up and not be an effective employee. So I think it'd have been easier to be a hunter-gatherer.
So that perhaps something as a takeaway, or to pull out of that, is that may be one of the really concrete, difficult challenges for us as survivors, is adjusting to the fact that we do have to reevaluate our purpose. But before, what you're describing, you just went on and up you go up the ladder, up you go up the athletic improvement or whatever. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, bang. And essentially, I would say that the most not that it hasn't always been the case, but maybe before we take our health for granted, perhaps before these things come along, we just don't think about it very much, or it's very automatic. But really, our primary sense of purpose post dissection surely has to be about self-care, because from making ourselves resilient with our self-care and keeping ourselves stable and well, we can then have a purpose in other areas of our life.
No, and I 100% agree. Um, but until then, having purpose here has, you know, if I didn't have the need to work, who knows? Maybe I wouldn't have walked as many miles as I walked, or I wouldn't have swam as many laps as I swam, or I wouldn't have done all the
Mm,
things that have got me to the health I am in today.
yeah.
Um,
So as we begin to sort of draw to a close, maybe I can throw a curved ball at you and ask you, are you able to draw out for us some pluses and some minuses about this experience for you?
Interesting question. And I asked somebody about this, and if the fact that we can talk about it is a plus. The fact that I have to think about it. There was a time when I would have never thought anything would have come to this. And watching that, I think it's the most recent Survivor video, and the woman was still fresh and recovering. I think she's within 8 to 12 months, and she had such a positive outlook, and it took me a long time. I have a positive outlook now. I'm, I am where I've wound up, and I like where I've wound up. So that's a huge positive. You start dissecting that word, but um, everything is, then you're doing a disservice to where you are and all the wonderful things that I have. I have people that love me. I have a great job. I can look back on my stay at Stanford with humor, and I miss the food. It was great food. It was nice being in a weather-tight cocoon, watching the rain fall against the windows. I'll loved getting that box of good wishes from the people at
Mm,
work. Um, there's a sense of accomplishment in all the miles that I walked. I think there's a lot of positives. I look at other people with a little more grace. I'm starting to look at myself with a little more grace. I start a little more compassionate for, and all the things that I thought I knew before I dissected it, I know now. They're not just concepts. They're, mortality wasn't something that I accepted. It's something I understand now, sort of. I mean, I'm sure the next time around I'll probably be slapped in the face again, but I hope I'm making sense. One of the things I hate about it is I lose track so much more than I ever did as far as what I'm talking about.
Bruce, you're
Um,
making a lot of sense, but I would
okay,
just
good.
like to say one thing there and run up a red flag about it. I would say comparisons in this are the road to hell, because
Yeah,
we are who we are, and some people may manage to have a very positive attitude. Some people may struggle much more. Some people may struggle more with energy. And the worst thing that people can do in this situation is go, "Oh, I should be like that person over there," or "What's wrong with me? I can't get it together," because that does not help. Emotional feelings, and can be a precipitator of depression and things like that. One has to try and accept oneself. Everybody's different. And we also need to be careful, I think, of, positive attitudes are great, but at the same time, we also have to make room for the grief and room for the trauma, like in any kind of change in life. Um, there can be this culture out there in the world today, only that awful phrase, in my opinion, only positive vibes, where
yeah,
life can't be like that. You've lost a loved one or something, and you say, I'm only going to have positive vibes. It's not authentic, is it? And
no,
I think it's very important that as part of the recovery process that we work through it authentically, and then there isn't an obligation to have a positive outlook. You can be thoroughly, I could swear now quite easily, but I won't. But I'm sure people get what I mean, effed off about it, and that's fine.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It is work, and you got to take the good with the bad. A very wise person once told me we all got to do stuff we don't want to do, and so what seemed like a negative at the time is probably a positive now. There was a lot of growth in the last 30 months
Mm.
that I wouldn't have had. So I don't think it does a lot of good to look at the minuses. Like I said, I don't like not having a great memory now, but I don't think I had a great memory before either. So, but um, there are some holes in it that I think need work, but it's mostly positive. If you ask me if I wanted to have a dissection, I would say no. But am I sorry that it happened? No, not sorry that it happened. It's
Mm.
something that going to move forward with.
Well, again, it's kind of,
But that,
I completely understand the tendency to do that, and I do it myself, but it's a completely irrelevant question in terms of moving forward, isn't it? Because time and time again, I'd say to people who've suffered any kind of trauma, you can't change it. It's happened. And these are the events, and it's like, what do we do from here on in? And that's life for everybody. Nobody can go through a life without, for example, experiencing loss of some kind, and you can't change that loss.
no, I think overall, I'm in a pretty good place. A place I never would have dreamed I would be in, both mentally and physically 30 months ago. But I've had a lot of help. You can't do this alone. And I owe a lot to not just people close to me, but also like Aortic Hope. When I found Chef Rob's video at 7 months, that was literally life changing. And sitting and talking to Molly, Velda, and Karen, and Joshua, everybody, it's just
That's
and
lovely to hear. Big shout out to
yeah,
Aortic Hope.
yes, yeah.
Can I just flip back to Joshua there? Do we have any more comments and
Oh, we have a
hellos
few.
from the
I'm a big fan,
community?
Bruce. I always have been.
Thank you.
Oaktastic says, I'm proud of you, B. She gave you the fire emoji. Molly says, great job, Bruce. Oaktastic says, well said, John, when you said no comparisons. Great point, John. No comparisons allowed, says Molly. And we're not even done yet, says Oaktastic.
Okay. So it's been a pleasure to have you on, Bruce.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have we taken you away from your working day somewhat?
It's fine. I scheduled it. And
Okay.
it doesn't, despite what I think the world keeps rolling along, I'm in a meeting. Yeah, I'm not as important as I like to think I am.
And how has it been for you to talk today and, be pressured by me to be a little bit vulnerable and put you on the spot?
Actually, the biggest challenge is for me to temper what I say, actually. I could have I didn't cry at all. That was kind of surprising. Early on, I couldn't have a conversation like this and not get choked up.
Ah, that's
No,
interesting in itself, isn't it?
yeah, I've come a long way. But again, that's another one of those things is that plus or minus. One of the things that I've loved about this whole journey is that being more authentic with my reactions, my feelings with things. You have to temper them though, because I don't want to be the guy that puts people at ill at ease. But I'm a lot more emotionally authentic these days.
Ah, that's really interesting. Yeah. And of course,
Yeah.
some people are out there going to handle that better than others, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is worth remembering is always going to be about them and not you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I work in a really I work in construction, so.
Mm.
But the people that know me is fine, and the people that don't know me, I don't care.
So as a closing takeaway, I really like that idea that out of this experience, it can show us to grab hold of our own authenticity. And I think that can be really valuable. That when life does something really radical to us like this, it forces us back onto ourselves and maybe, okay, so who am I? Am I going to seize myself in this and my dignity? So I think that's really, really a positive way to move through this experience.
I think so. I hope so.
And I must
That's
remind
how I'm
again
doing it.
everybody to like and subscribe. Is that right, Joshua?
Subscribe.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Bruce, once again, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Joshua, Molly, Oak, everybody. Love you all.